I want you to just think about the last time you streamed your favorite show or, ordered something online or even just open an app on your phone.
Which is, I mean, basically every 5 minutes for most of us, right?
Right, exactly. But behind every single one of those like totally seamless digital experiences
Mm.
is this massive invisible engine.
Yeah,
And it's basically powering the entire modern internet.
it really is. It's wild to think about.
It is. So welcome to this deep dive. Today we're officially jumping into the foundational concepts from the Listen and Learn AWS channel, which is essentially your ultimate guide to mastering the world's most powerful cloud platform.
Yeah, and we're so glad to have you listening, whether you're, a total beginner or maybe an IT pro.
Yeah, okay, let's unpack this right away.
Okay.
Because if you have ever tried diving into the cloud on your own, like literally just trying to learn how it works, you've probably hit this massive wall.
Oh, a total brick wall.
Right, walls of dense documentation, overwhelming jargon, and just a dizzying sea of acronyms. It's incredibly intimidating.
It is so easy to feel completely lost before you even, spin up your very first server. I mean, the terminology alone is enough to make you just quit.
Yeah, which is exactly why this deep dive and the Listen and Learn AWS roadmap exists in the first place. We want to break this stuff down for you.
Exactly. So if you're a complete beginner trying to break into tech, or an IT professional studying for your next AWS certification, or really just a curious mind.
Yeah, someone who just wants to understand the infrastructure that is, shaping our entire digital world. We are breaking it all down into digestible, clear, and highly engaging concepts.
Which is so needed today, because what's fascinating here is that the gap between the user experience and the back-end reality is just huge.
Oh, totally. We interact with this totally frictionless digital world, right? Like you tap a button and a car shows up.
Exactly. But people don't realize it requires a massive structural foundation to make that happen.
Yeah.
And the tech documentation, it completely fails learners because it just drowns you in acronyms instead of giving you practical applications.
Right. It's like, I was thinking about this. It's like trying to learn how to drive a car,
Yeah.
but the manual insists on explaining like the exact chemical composition of the gasoline first.
Yes.
Yes.
That is exactly what reading official AWS documentation feels like. You're like, I just want to put it in Drive.
Exactly. Hand me the keys. And that's the promise of the Listen and Learn AWS approach, right? Handing you the keys, not a chemistry textbook, prioritizing clear human-level clarity over, dense tech speak.
Which is critical if you want to actually build things and not just memorize vocabulary words.
Yeah, 100%.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, before we can even understand how this invisible engine works today, we really have to look at what people were driving before it existed.
Oh, man. The before times.
Before times, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, how did businesses and websites even work before the cloud was a thing?
Well, I mean, it was a completely different world. If you wanted to build an app or launch a website, you had to buy physical computers.
Like actual hardware.
Right, actual physical servers. And these things were incredibly expensive. You couldn't just, run a massive business off your laptop.
Yeah, you had to buy racks and racks of them.
Exactly. You buy these expensive physical servers, you stack them in a dedicated room somewhere, and then you have to pay massive electricity bills to keep them running.
And cool them down, right?
Yeah.
Because they get incredibly hot.
Oh, yeah. The cooling bills alone would bankrupt small startups today. Plus, you had to hire actual physical maintenance technicians to just sit there and swap out dead hard drives.
That sounds like a total nightmare. But here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because let's say you do all that. You build your website, you put it on your expensive physical servers.
Yeah.
And then overnight, your site goes viral. You get a massive spike. 1 million users hit your website all at once. What happens? Why couldn't they just, push the physical servers a little harder?
I mean, it's a great question, but you physically cannot do that.
Mhm.
Physical hardware has hard mathematical limits.
Like it just stops.
Yeah, pretty much. The CPU, the brain of the server, can only process so much logic at once. So when 1 million users hit it, a queue forms.
Okay, like a traffic jam.
Exactly like a traffic jam. And the server's RAM gets filled up, and then it starts trying to use the physical hard drive as memory, which is super slow. And eventually,
Gives up.
it crashes. Under the pressure of 1 million users, those physical servers would literally just crash unless you ran out and bought even more expensive hardware.
Which, I mean, if your site is crashing right now, you don't have time to go to the store and buy a server.
Right. It was a slow, costly, and incredibly reactive process. By the time you get the new servers wired up, the viral moment is completely gone.
The users have moved on.
Right.
Wow. So that bottleneck is what basically created the desperate need for a totally new paradigm.
Exactly. It was a crisis of scalability. And that leads us perfectly into Amazon's solution.
Which is AWS, Amazon Web Services.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the brilliance of what Amazon did is just incredible. They looked at everyone struggling with these physical servers and said, what if we just centralize this?
So instead of everyone buying their own hardware?
Yeah, Amazon built massive, highly secure data centers all over the globe. I'm talking millions of powerful servers inside these heavily guarded facilities.
Right.
And then they took the crushing physical and financial burden of maintaining all that, and they just opened their servers to the public to rent over the internet.
Okay, so I want to jump in here because the listen and learn source uses an analogy that I absolutely love.
The apartment analogy.
Yes. So using AWS is exactly like renting an apartment instead of building an entire apartment complex from scratch.
It's the perfect way to look at it.
Right. Because if you rent, you don't have to fix the roof. You don't have to maintain the plumbing. The landlord, which is Amazon, handles all that infrastructure.
You just bring your furniture, or in this case, your app and your data.
Exactly. So what does this all actually mean for the user? It means on-demand, pay-as-you-go pricing.
Which was revolutionary.
Because unlike a traditional apartment where, you pay a flat monthly rent even if you go on vacation for 2 weeks, AWS lets you pay only for the exact space and computing power you use right down to the second.
And right when you use it, if you turn the server off, the billing stops immediately.
That is just wild compared to buying a physical server that sits in a closet, losing value.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder if the barrier to entry is just essentially renting an apartment. Who exactly is moving into this building?
Well, that's the thing. It's the great equalizer. You have a massive spectrum of entities running their entire infrastructures on AWS right now.
Like who? Give me some examples.
I mean, literally everyone. The source specifically mentions tiny two-person startups operating out of a garage,
Okay.
alongside global giants like Netflix, Airbnb, and Epic Games.
Wait, really? Netflix is on AWS?
Oh, absolutely. Netflix relies entirely on AWS to stream to millions of people globally.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here. It's really hard to imagine that the infrastructure holding up the entirety of Netflix streaming is the exact same thing a beginner is using to spin up their very first server.
I know it sounds crazy, but that is the very magic of AWS. Because of the pay-as-you-go structure and the infinite scalability, that startup in a garage has access to the exact same cutting-edge, military-grade secure data centers as a multi-billion-dollar corporation.
That is, wow. Okay, but they aren't using it the same way, obviously.
Right, right. To go back to your analogy, the startup is just renting a tiny little studio apartment of computing power.
And Netflix.
Netflix is renting entire skyscrapers. But it is all built on the exact same secure global foundation provided by Amazon.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So having established this massive, kind of awe-inspiring scale of AWS, I want to bring the focus back to the immediate future for you, the listener.
Yeah, how to actually start navigating this beast.
Exactly. Because looking at AWS for the first time is like opening the cockpit of a 747. There's just so many buttons.
It really is. And this raises an important question. How do you actually approach learning this massive ecosystem without losing your mind?
Right. And the Listen and Learn AWS channel lays out a really clear roadmap for this. They are basically demystifying the ecosystem upcoming in their content by breaking it down into 3 core pillars.
Yes. Taking it one service at a time to prevent that overwhelm we talked about at the start.
Right. So the roadmap focuses on exploring virtual service with EC2, looking at scalable cloud storage with S3, and mastering essential security frameworks. Let's kind of tease these out a bit. EC2, what is that?
So EC2 stands for Elastic Compute Cloud. It is basically the virtual server. It's the brain. If you need a computer to run code, you rent an EC2 instance.
Got it. And the elastic part?
That means you can stretch it. You can have one server today, and if you go viral tomorrow, AWS automatically gives you 100 servers and then scales it back down when the traffic drops.
Okay, so that completely solves the viral spike traffic jam we talked about earlier.
Completely.
Okay, so that's compute. What about S3?
S3 is simple storage service. This is where you put your files, your images, your videos, your backups.
So it's basically like a giant hard drive in the cloud.
Sort of, but it's fundamentally different than the hard drive on your laptop. It's what we call object storage. It scales infinitely. You never have to tell S3 how big the hard drive needs to be. You just keep throwing files into it, and it magically expands.
That is so cool. Okay, so we have the brain with EC2, the filing cabinet with S3. What about these security frameworks?
This is arguably the most important part, because if you have all this power and all this data sitting on the internet, you have to keep it safe.
Right, because if you leave the door to your apartment wide open, anybody can just walk in.
Exactly. And there's a concept in AWS called the shared responsibility model. Amazon secures the physical building, the concrete, the guards, the actual hardware.
But you're responsible for locking your own apartment door.
Precisely. You have to configure the firewalls, you have to set the passwords, and that's what these security frameworks teach you to do.
Okay, I love that. So translating all of this back to your goals as a listener, whether you want to elevate your technical skills, level up your career, or really just understand how the modern web actually works under the hood.
Yeah, these are the fundamental building blocks you absolutely must learn. You have to know EC2, S3, and security to keep cloud environments safe and scalable.
100%. It's the literacy of the modern internet.
It really is. And the Listen and Learn AWS roadmap is designed specifically so you can literally just plug in your headphones, listen, and let this incredibly complex tech landscape finally make sense.
Which is a beautiful thing. So to wrap up our journey today, we really went from the physical, electricity-guzzling, massive server rooms of the past.
The nightmares of bare metal.
Yes, the nightmares. To the incredibly flexible, pay-as-you-go cloud architecture of today, which is championed by AWS.
It's a complete shift in how human beings build technology.
It is. But I want to leave you, the listener, with a final lingering thought based on the source text we've been unpacking today.
Oh, this is a good one.
Because we call it cloud computing, right? And that phrase, cloud computing, it sounds so weightless. It sounds invisible and like floaty, like it's just hanging out in the sky.
Like magic water vapor.
Exactly. But as the text reveals, AWS is actually made of massive, highly secure physical data centers all over the globe, filled with millions of heavy, hot, power-hungry physical servers.
It's the most physical thing ever.
Right. So the next time you stream a movie or open an app on your phone, I want you to ask yourself, is the internet really living in an invisible cloud? Or has it just moved out of our physical server rooms and into Amazon's heavily guarded real estate?
That really changes how you look at your phone, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.